the relationship between India and Nepal is critical for both India and Nepal. So whichever dispensation you have in either of the two countries has to work together. Whether it's the older generation, whether it's Gen Z or any other system or framework, it is critical for both countries that you have to work.
Welcome to the gist for StratNews Global. This is Nayanima Basu. I have with me today a very special guest, Ambassador Ranjit Rae. He was India's ambassador to Nepal from 2013 to 2017. He has also been Joint Secretary North, so knows Nepal in and out. He also has a book, Kathmandu Dilemma. So we are going to understand from him not just what is happening, which is, of course, that is there in the news, the protest, the Gen Z protest, so to say, but we'll also understand what has been the history of Nepal. The fact that Nepal has undergone several socio-political transformation and the kind of relationship it has with India. Welcome to the gist, sir, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sir, I know this is a very busy time for you, but just to understand and for the benefit of our viewers is the fact that whatever is happening in Nepal, it's still evolving. So the situation is kind of fluid. But do you really see, as what experts are saying here and globally, that there is a pattern with Bangladesh, Sri Lanka? Do you really see this as a pattern?
Well, I don't think you can compare situations in different countries. But what I would say is two things. One, there is a certain sense of alienation of the young people from the established, political processes, or there's a feeling that their voices are not heard. And secondly, this is the age of social media.
Right.
So it's instant communication, instant mobilization. So all these factors have made, these kinds of protests and on a very large scale possible. And in fact, the trigger for what happened in Nepal was really the banning of the social media apps, although, there are many other reasons as to why what happened. But as far as Nepal is concerned, my sense is that this is largely a homegrown protest organized by the so-called Gen Z, who were protesting misgovernance, corruption, lack of development, lack of jobs. A third of the Nepalese population lives and works abroad.
Right.
So this was pent up, and, they were seeing the same leaders constantly over the last many, many years. So no expectation that there would be, positive change. So a lot of pent up frustrations and a feeling that, the voice is not being heard.
Right.
So I think these were some of the reasons why this has happened. I really don't know too much about Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Perhaps the situation may have been similar there or may have been different. But the other difference in Nepal is, I think, the kind of lynchings of political leaders, the burning down of their houses, the destruction of the institutions of the state.
Right.
The Supreme Court, the Parliament, the President's office, the Prime Minister's office. I have not seen this anywhere. And, on the institution of the state, the Gen Z has denied that this is, they're responsible for it, which means certain other elements have infiltrated into this movement. On the second day,
Right.
when after the killing of those 19 or 20 innocent young people.
Right, and that has been the main discussion point. Now, we've also been hearing from several, experts there in Nepal that burning of the parliament and other things, it's the handiwork of some, outside element. But you are also saying, sir, that this is a homegrown kind of a protest that we are seeing, maybe a transformation. So when people say that this is a larger regime kind operation, regime change, and, maybe outside hand, you don't see all that. So can you, if you are telling us that this is homegrown, why are you saying that? Apart from the fact that there is also this question that this is a communist government, which is why America didn't want it. All sorts of conspiracy.
I think mobilization on this scale and throughout the country, I don't think is really possible for anyone to organize or instigate. And, this was more in the nature of a spontaneous eruption. As I said, the trigger was banning of the social media apps.
Right.
And, social media is a critical lifeline for all young people, for everyone, actually. It's also a source of livelihoods for a lot of people. And, for the IT sector and so on, where a lot of young people are involved. And the huge Nepali diaspora, which connects with their families back home through Facebook and Messenger. So this was like the last straw on the camel's back. Discontent has been going on for quite some time. In fact, when I was on one of my visits to Nepal many months ago, soon after Bangladesh crisis erupted, many people were asking me, do you think a Bangladesh type of situation could emerge in Nepal?
Exactly.
So there was this sense of frustration which was ignored by the political leadership. And that's why you see this really vicious attack, including personal attacks
Right.
against them. So it's a very dicey, difficult, very serious, sensitive situation right now. And I hope, things appear to have stabilized on the law and order front. The kind of destruction we saw on the 7th and 8th is no longer there. The army has taken control. It's important that, multi-party democracy is preserved and, the country progresses rapidly.
Right. So you were also Joint Secretary North, looking at Nepal from a very different angle, going there almost regularly. You've seen the Maoist revolution there, the abolition of the monarchy, promulgation of the new constitution, and the fact that those era. I remember also reporting about the fact that how democracy has finally come in Nepal. If you can give us a glimpse of that era, and do you think that particular democracy that even of course Nepal dreamt about, is that under threat?
So let me give you a little bit of a history
Sure.
context. See, Nepal is basically a very diverse country, both in terms of geography, topography, the ethnicity, religions. So, it's a very diverse country. And I think the aspiration of the people of Nepal over a long period of time has been for democracy.
Right.
They fought against the Rana autocracy and India supported them in that. There was a famous pact that abolished the Rana autocracy that was signed in Delhi in 1950. Then, of course, King Mahendra took over executive power with the panchayat system in 1960, partyless panchayat system. Lot of protests against that went on for many decades. Ultimately, the executive monarchy gave way to multi-party democracy.
Exactly.
And a constitutional monarchy with, a huge Jan Andolan.
Yeah, exactly.
And so these two movements that you see earlier were for political emancipation. One, to end the Rana rule. Two, to end the Panchayat rule and to have multi-party democracy.
Right.
And not have an autocratic executive monarch, but to have a constitutional monarch. Thereafter, in the 90s, the agitations and the insurgency by the Maoists started. So this was an agitation for economic equality, equity, for more identity-based politics, for a more progressive state. And, this was taken forward by the Madhesi agitations, who had historically felt discriminated in Nepal. The representation of Madhesis and Janjatis in state structures was very limited. So these Maoist and Madhesi agitations were for economic emancipation. So once you had achieved multi-party democracy, then the idea was that it should be a more inclusive state and represent everybody. It should not be dominated just by one section of society.
Right.
So these agitations ended with solemn agreements for, federalism, for inclusion through the mixed electoral system, and in the process, Nepal also became a republic.
Correct.
This is largely due to the missteps of the then king in 2005 when he, took complete executive power like his father had taken before him in 1960. So what I'm trying to say is that what they have today, the structure of governance they have today, has a huge backstory.
Exactly.
And it is a story of huge struggles, turmoil, violence, deaths.
Year after year.
So it's and you see it's a progression. So this is something that everybody who, wants to know about Nepal must understand. These are hard-won, hard-fought gains that they have achieved in terms of the 2015 constitution. The problems today seem to be that since 2015, there was an expectation that this will bring stability, this will bring progress, improve the lives of the people. And it has happened to some extent. But the aspirations of the people have also increased rapidly, especially in this age of social media.
Right.
And on the other hand, you also saw huge amounts of corruption by the political leadership. and, constant rotation of positions amongst the same people. So the people of Nepal became very frustrated that nothing is happening. So, there was a lot of anger against the political class, which is why you see all these houses burnt down and the lynchings and so on. But at the same time, some people have now started questioning the structure itself, the system.
Exactly.
That it's not just the political elite or the political class that is the problem, but this system has not delivered. And there are different opinions. But I've given you the background of how the system emerged.
Exactly.
So now there is a view among some people, maybe Nepal should not be a republic. It should be, also the king should have a role. Maybe federalism should not have been introduced. Maybe secularism is not what is required in Nepal.
Exactly.
It should be Hindu.
So
all these elements are now coming out. But what I'm trying to say is all this was resolved in whatever manner in the Constitution of 2015. Questioning all these core aspects would mean considerable more debate, discussion, bringing people together. It cannot be done just by some people sitting somewhere saying, we don't like X or Y, and so it should not be there. So it's a whole process, that's what I'm saying. So what is now happening is that A, you question the leaders, B, if you are questioning the constitution itself, then obviously there will be, what are the implications of this? So that is the stage at which we are today. And of course, we saw in the newspapers that former Chief Justice Sushila Karki
exactly.
Has been nominated by Gen Z. I don't know whether this nomination has been accepted or whether she's been appointed as the interim head of the government. But there's also this big debate about, should the parliament be dissolved?
And also what's happening to the president in the sense that, people expect him to take a larger role. Or there is this question that, are we going back to the monarchy days? So,
this is, as far as I know, the actions of the army chief, the discussions he's having with Gen Z and others are on the basis of the authority provided to him by the president.
Right.
But I'm a bit surprised that the president has not addressed the nation. Normally, in such a time of crisis, the army chief did speak to the nation. But, one would expect that the president is the symbolic head. He's also the sovereign commander-in-chief of the army. And that, he would address the nation in terms of what's happening and the way forward. So it's very difficult to say right now how the situation is going to develop in the next few days. But it's a changeable time.
Right. So you really categorized it really well. First, it was the political emancipation, then the economic emancipation. Now, but between all of this, there is this question of relationship with India, right? It's a very special relationship that we have with Nepal, unlike what we have with any of our neighbors. Now, of course, there is this thing about roti beti ka rishta, but then there is also this thing about whether India wants a Hindu Rashtra, India wants the monarchy back, India is backing the democracy there or not. So how do you see that? Also, I mean, I'm not just saying in the present. I'm sure the government is watching the situation evolve. And, right now the priority is to evacuate our citizens out from there because of the, the problems at the airport. But historically, how do you see India supporting? Of course, in your book, Kathmandu Dilemma, you talk about how India once saw the Nepali Maoists as terrorists. And but then we supported their army supplying of the INSAS rifles. So if you can give India's relationship an understanding of that.
So if you look at India's involvement in Nepal, I think India has always been on the side of popular aspirations. India has always supported the will of the Nepalese people for multi-party democracy, for inclusion, for the kind of system that they wanted. And I think this has been India's consistent policy over many, many decades. And I think this is the same policy that has to continue, of supporting, whatever Nepal wants. Of course, for India, as you said, the relationship is very, very deep and very strategically significant as well. We have open borders.
Right.
So if Nepal is destabilized, it becomes vulnerable to,
big security
external elements that may be inimical to Nepal's interests and to India's interests. So it's a very critical relationship. So for India, I think our strategy has always been peace, stability, and progress.
Right.
Link the two countries not only through the cultural, spiritual, religious, and people-to-people connect, but also in terms of infrastructure connectivity, in terms of joint projects in the hydropower sector that will bring the two countries together, in terms of developing sub-regional cooperation on economic issues, in terms of reaching out to the young people, the so-called Gen Z generation.
Right.
So I think our strategy has always been to work with, whichever system is in power and to support what the people of Nepal want. And I think that
remains.
will continue. And if you see the history over 70 years, what is it that the people have wanted? The people wanted democracy, the people wanted development. And I guess that those are the aspirations of people all over the world.
But sir, you also are, of course, you've mentioned that in your book, but then there is this feeling that one also, wherever we go there for reporting, we also get there has been this anti-India kind of sentiments, which is always underlying. Maybe the Gen Z protesters probably now want a change. Maybe they want to not have that special relationship with India. There has been this demand also to revise the 1950 Friendship Treaty and all of that. How do you read that, sir?
So, I've explained in my book in great detail the origins of anti-India nationalism.
Right.
And, partly it's structural because of the asymmetry in size, in population. So, it always benefits political leaders in Nepal to say, oh, we are standing up to India, to big brother India, and so on. And there is also a sense that, India has been sometimes very patronizing towards Nepal. But the point is, this is a fact of life. And, partly it was also because we supported people's movements for greater democracy. So
Correct.
the elites of the time felt, they did not like this. For instance, during King Mahendra's takeover
Yes.
of executive power. So there are, so this is a fact of life, it will remain. And, this is not unique to India. It's also there in other geographies where you have such asymmetrical relationships. The challenge is, how do you factor this into your policy and still work together to improve the relationship, and especially the economic dimension of the relationship? And I think this is what we are doing. So, there is a specific long-term strategy of economic connectivity, as I mentioned, through various projects and joint development of hydropower and other such initiatives. And that is really the way to go, because anti-Indian sentiment is never going to go away from Nepal. We've seen most recently it's again fled up on this boundary issue.
Exactly.
As far as the 1950 treaty is concerned, we are open to reviewing it and amending it. And the Prime Minister has said so publicly that we are prepared to discuss it.
That's right. But then the thing here is not just the 1950 treaty, the way they changed the map. And the fact that, during the Madhesi protest also, how they blamed India for the entire blockade. And now with this protest, do you think there will be a change in India-Nepal relationship also, or there are questions also happening whether we should continue to have open borders, which can be hugely disturbing for people
the
there?
open borders and the people-to-people connect is the very fundamental basis of the relationship. And the open border is a huge strategic asset between our two countries.
And that should continue.
Of course, from time to time, the open border is misused by certain elements.
Right.
And we know, what has happened in the past, some infiltrators from Pakistan and so on. But the way of, to address that is not by closing the border and erecting fences. It is to have by smart policing, good intelligence cooperation between the two countries, good border guarding cooperation between border guarding forces, and this is happening. So we have excellent relationship between the security forces on the two sides. So the idea is to strengthen this open border that we have, rather than making it more difficult for the people on the two sides, because I said this is the fundamental basis, and this is from time immemorial. The open border is not because of the 1950 treaty. It's always been there. It's just that in 1816 the border line got demarcated by the British in a certain manner.
The Treaty of Sugoli.
Yeah, and the people got divided between the two sides.
Right.
So this is a huge asset, and we must support this and continue this. There's no doubt. I've forgotten you mentioned some other.
No, also
aspect.
the fact that people-to-people linkages. That's what I was, because there was this incident of IC-814 hijack. There had been question mark putting on this relationship again and again. But of course, the relationship has continued. But after what we are seeing happening now, it seems Nepal is definitely going to change a page in their history. And how is India going to also see? Because the world is changing.
So the other point, two or three points I want to make here. One, the relationship between India and Nepal is critical for both India and Nepal. So whichever dispensation you have in either of the two countries has to work together. Whether it's the older generation, whether it's Gen Z or any other system or framework, it is critical for both countries that you have to work together. So, that is also a very important element. So the two countries have always got to have good relations and develop these relations. And this is what is reflected over the last 7 decades. There are irritants from time to time because it's such a close relationship. So in any relationship that is so close, even within a family, for instance, there will be some differences. But those differences are resolved through negotiations. And, but the trend, direction in which the relationship is always positive. Secondly, as you said, it's a new world of young people, of social media, of artificial intelligence. All this is impacting the manner in which countries engage with each other. And it's absolutely important for India to reach out with smart diplomacy to the new generation, not only in Nepal, but in our entire neighborhood. So we must have a very good connect with the younger generation. So I think that is absolutely critical, and we have to devise programs, through which we can establish this connect.
Very, very important point you made there, sir. And I know it's a busy time, so I'll ask you, my last question is the fact that sitting in India now, we are hearing again through social media and of course through reportage from there, characters like, Balendra Shah and, there is this NGO that is coming up, Hami Nepal. Then there is this question also happening, what is the role Nepalese army is doing? Is this a coup? How do you want to address all that?
So, Kathmandu, as I've always said, is really a capital for rumors. And this is a very sensitive time. And so there are all sorts of rumors that are floating around. And I think it's very important for the dispensation in Nepal to squash these rumors and, set at rest any fears that people may have. It has a long democratic tradition. The new generation has grown up in this democratic tradition. And in fact, Hami Nepal itself has said that they want complete transparency. And so they've started a website in terms of their resources, etc. So I think it's very important that whatever happens in Nepal is transparent and people see not only the result of what is happening, but the whole process through which decision making is occurring. And of course, again, from social media, we hear that Mrs. Sushila Karki, the former Chief Justice, has been nominated by the Gen Z as the interim leader of Nepal. And, she is a very eminent jurist, goes by the rule of law. So she has a very important background, very well known in Nepal and also to India. She's from Banaras Hindu University. So let's see how this progresses, because we haven't heard or seen as yet that she has been appointed. And there are also issues swirling around in terms of what happens to the existing parliament, whether it continues or is dissolved. So there are a lot of very serious issues which the Nepalese people are trying to handle themselves. And, India has to wish them all success in their endeavors at this very, very critical, very difficult time.
Sure. Thank you so much for that, Ambassador. So that was Ambassador Ranjit Rae telling us the past of Nepal, which has seen so many transformations happening, the present, and the fact, most importantly, that India and Nepal relationship has to be stable. Whichever dispensation comes in, both countries need to work together. Thank you for watching this interaction on The Gist for StratNews Global.